So why is the Austin real estate market appreciating to the moon? If the Austin real estate market had a spirit animal, I think it would be a Shiba Inu.
Shiba Inu. Today we're going to talk about the 5 reasons that Austin housing prices are going crazy.
To the moon.
I'm Alyse.
And I'm John.
And we are part of the Heart of Austin Homes team. Guess what? Here in Austin.
Yep.
And we help people with homes. And so we have been involved in this whole crazy buildup since the beginning of this insanity.
Actually, since the last crash, really, since about 2008. So if you like real estate, then you should really like this video and subscribe if you want to see more videos from us on the Austin real estate market. It only takes a second and it's totally painless, so just click it right now.
Definitely. Hit the little bell so you can know every time we release a new video.
Yeah, if you want notifications, because we all need more notifications.
Love it. What are the 5 reasons, John?
Well, let's just start with one of them, which is interest rates.
Sure.
So interest rates have been historically low. It feels like I've been saying that for a decade because they keep coming down. They were historically low when they were 6% and 5 and 4 and 3, and now we're at like 2.5.
Yep.
Right. So if interest rates start to come back up, which there's some inkling that the Fed might do that in 1 to 2 years, who knows when that would happen, then that's going to put downward price pressure on prices. However, that hasn't happened yet. Like they come up a tiny bit. So because the money's really cheap, people can afford more house. So that's pushing prices up. That's just one of the factors they're admitting. Another thing to be concerned about is that the Fed, they kind of can't really raise rates that much, maybe a little bit. But if they raise them too much, or even if they ramp them up too much, they make the cost of sustaining their own debt too high. So it's a catch-22. The Fed has really lost its ability to manage inflation through interest rates because raising it more is just going to pile on the amount that we have to pay for our national debt. So in my opinion, just my opinion only, I think that we will try and print our way out of this, which means that, hey, prices are just going to keep going up if they keep printing. Also, because if the Fed even said, hey, we're going to print our way out of this, that would cause this major catastrophic event. People would flip out. They would flip out. So even if they were going to do that, they couldn't tell us that they were going to do that, right? So, we'll see.
Number 2 is that there is a national housing shortage. So we need, as a whole, in the United States, about 1 million new home starts per year to keep up with demand. And we have only had that 1 year since that big 2008 crash. And so we just don't have the houses as a nation. This shortage bit, this part of it, as well as the interest rates, this applies to most major markets in the United States right now. So you'll see crazy bid ups in most major markets in the United States right now.
And it's been going on for a long time. We haven't been building enough houses. And now, post-corona, all of the supply chains are still messed up. They're still not ironed out, and they've got a backlog. So now there's this big bubble in the supply chain, and it's really difficult to produce more
COVID
goods.
made it so much worse.
Which is, raised lumber prices, among other things. There's a trade agreement going on between Canada and the United States right now, so they got to figure that out because Canada's like, hey, my trees are worth more. I don't like my old terms. Let's make some new ones.
Definitely.
Right? So I don't know when that's going to get screwed, for lack of a better term. But it's going to be a while before we're back to building at a regular volume. Plus, there's going to certainly be a surge. If the supply chain gets, resurrected, then people are just going to build like crazy, assuming they can get the permits for them. So that will probably come. We'll have another boom cycle.
Number 3, there is a huge influx of businesses as well as people who are now, let's say, untethered or work from home moving into Austin. And why would that happen? Well, there are really business-friendly, approaches within Texas, both our tax approaches and such, and laws. And so a lot of businesses want to come here, and they also look at the Austin market and see that it has a low cost of living relative to most other attractive markets.
Well, it did last year.
It had a low cost of living last year. And even now with the higher prices, we're still not up to a lot of the major markets. So these companies are coming in, and then people who now are able to work from anywhere, I've always wanted to move to Austin. It's so cool. So really, it's the beers under the twinkle lights in the warm weather that's to blame because everybody wants to move here.
And there are a lot of reasons to come to Austin too. It's
Elon.
Yeah, business friendly, of course. It's kind of like a minor startup city. It's not like the Valley, but it's kind of like the Silicon Hills. So there are a lot of brains coming here, and there's actually a lot of space to build still too, even east of the city. So it's got a lot of attractive reasons reasons for businesses to come here. So hopefully we can build fast enough so that there's actually space for them all to do business here.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tesla has promised 5,000 jobs. Apple has promised 5,000 jobs. SpaceX has promised, I think they said at least 5,000 jobs.
Yeah, they're putting their parts manufacturing here for the Starship in Boca Chica / Starship, Texas.
Starship, Texas. And then Facebook, I think, is bringing another 2,000 or so. And then Amazon is opening 2 different distribution centers with 1,500.
And one in Kyle.
Exactly. One at the north side, one at the south side of Austin.
Get both ends.
And those are supposed to each have at least 15,000. And then there are 256 companies that have either announced that they were expanding within Austin or moving to Austin or opening in Austin in the last year and a half, 2 years. And so all of that means thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs going into which houses? I do not know.
The worst part about that too is that once they get here, because they've all said, hey, we're coming, but they're not here yet. They're building their buildings. But as they show up, that's also going to increase prices further still. Plus you got all of the support jobs that come with each job. So like one person working at Facebook in Austin creates like, well, look, they've got to have a house. Okay, great. You've got to have people to support that house. Plumbers, electricians. Okay, look, they're gonna go buy groceries. Like all of the stuff that comes with that job creates a pyramid of more people who are gonna be employed just by that one high-end employee.
Definitely. Number 4 is potential upcoming inflation. With all of the recent, let's just say, stimulus checks and infrastructure investments, that money has to come from somewhere, right? And the government naturally is going to be doing some printing. I mean, it doesn't matter what political side of the spectrum you come from. This has happened last administration, this administration, etc. It has to at a certain point. But when that happens, each dollar is theoretically worth less for each one. So when you go to buy a house, you have to pay more of those dollars to get that value. So just inflation in and of itself is going to contribute to the rise of prices. Additionally, more investors are looking for a safe place that are inflation adjusted, which means protected, which means that that the value of their dollar will grow once it's invested and will adjust for inflation.
Or even it won't depreciate, right? So like that's why hard assets are the way to go in an inflationary environment.
Definitely.
You look at like Weimar Republic and World War II. I'm not saying we're going to get that bad, but like, hey, if you just took out a bunch of debt and bought, hard assets like, coal, oil, and gold, like you would have been fine because you can't make more of those.
Well, and real estate is understood to be one of the best inflation protected, inflation adjusted assets out there. So if you're an investor looking to keep your money safe, it's one of the best places to put it. So that's why potential upcoming inflation is a huge contributor potentially to prices going up. Number 5
is the cost of materials and the ease or lack thereof getting a permit. So because of the supply chain disruptions and because there's a higher demand to build because prices are going up, everything is just more expensive. The lumber's more expensive. The concrete's more expensive. All of your fixtures are more expensive. So guess what? All that goes into the house. No one builds for free, so the prices get more expensive to build. Now the other half of that is getting your permits. So permitting in Austin is still pretty slow. It takes 6 to 12 weeks to get a permit. Plus, the city of Austin has a certain capacity to generate permits. They can generate about 10 to 11,000 new permits a year. That's what they've historically done. And they're pushing those boundaries, but they really haven't staffed up. They still issue about the same number of permits every year, but the demand for housing is higher than the number of permits that they can create.
Definitely, and keep in mind too that there was a section where COVID went down last year and they got even a little bit behind within that. And so even though we're technically higher in the number of permits that were handed out this year, or was it last year? You were mentioning this to me.
Yeah, it's this year.
Yeah.
So last year we did about like 10 or 11,000, and this year we're a little ahead of that curve. But because of the backup, just like in the supply chain, like they've got more work than they can handle. They haven't increased their staff that much. And the city itself, because it's growing and because more people want to build, just needs to be able to generate more permits than that. And because of that, like they can't just issue enough buildings. So you know what? The prices are going to go up because there's fewer buildings to buy.
Maybe they could take the increased tax revenue that they're going to get from all these higher priced homes.
You know what they're going to do with that?
And get some staff for the permitting department.
They're building giant parks downtown, and then there's the new giant park on like the East Long Parkway, which is going to look amazing.
I'm pretty sure that they're doing more than just that park.
They are, but those are super expensive big parks. And so, well, here's the thing.
And there'll be huge assets of drawing people to Austin.
They will draw people to Austin, but they're going to draw more affluent to Austin. right?
Yeah.
So like to me, like those parks are going to be great. They're going to be beautiful. I'm going to enjoy them, but ultimately they serve only people who can buy expensive homes, because guess what? There's going to be a whole bunch of lakefront property there. Those things are going to be pricey. They're going to need expensive homes to support all that, and then so all those industries and all those tech companies too are going to bring high-end employees, which are going to be high-dollar houses. So it's not going to do anything for affordability. It's just going to make Austin a nicer, prettier, affluent city.
Which, by the way, they can't 100% be faulted for. Most cities are trying to drive growth, drive, income to the city, drive all these things. So it even though it's easy to demonize the city for encouraging so much business input and growth of the affluent, sort of aspect of the city, it's also what most cities are actually striving for.
Yeah, well, because they want the revenue and growth, affordability, and preservation. Choose two.
Well, as far as they're concerned, they're actually just encouraging people to, like, people are moving to Austin because of the parks, right? But if more people want to move to Austin, the only people who can afford it are the more affluent. So it's not like they're targeting the park only at the affluent. It's just that it causes
but that's what it's going to do to property values, right?
It will.
It just is.
Yeah. Right. Anyway.
So we can make a whole other video on what we think the city of Austin should do with the revenues from all these increased property prices. Right?
Have you seen a neighborhood skyrocket near you? Post something in the comments and let us know. We would love to hear about your particular story. We got a million stories we could share back, but we'd love to hear what you have to think about it. If this information was helpful or you got anything out of it as far as your awareness, we would love a thumbs up. And we would love it if you hit the subscribe button and the little bell so you could hear when we released new videos. Weapons. Either way, you guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.